Welcome back to another action-packed episode of the Deadly Podcast Kung Fu, brought to you by the Bills of Man, where myself, Justin Raymer, traverses the continuity of Marvel's most prolific martial artist in Iron Fist, Shang Chi, and the White Tiger. If you want to keep up with the podcast, you can do so over on social media platforms, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. If you want to keep it with myself, Justin Raymer, you can do so over on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. If you want to hear me and my friends play some TTRPGs, such as Dungeons & Dragons, Star Wars, and Resident Evil, you can go check us out over in the Last Tavern on the Left podcast, which you can follow on every social media platform that you follow Deadly Kung Fu Pod on. First, I want to apologize. There was no new episode last week, which is fine, because there's plenty of content. The last couple weeks, I've dropped 2 episodes per week. I thought I'd get an episode in last week, but I have learned when you remodel part of your house, for one, make sure you can trust your contractors and that they'll have everything done on time, so you're not living in a hotel more than a week than you thought you would. It sucked. My kids are having a blast. I guess that's a good thing. But I thought I'd be able to record an episode last week, but I couldn't. And this whole situation sucks. But hopefully, by the time this episode is released, it'll be done that day or the following day, and I'll have this nightmare out of my hands. I say nightmare, a remodel, you're supposed to enjoy the way your remodel looks, but it is just turned into a god-awful mess. But anyways, recently, last week, when White Tiger Reborn was released, hopefully you picked it up. I was very excited to see Blackbird return. So when we'd get a little bit more out of Hector than what we did. But it was enjoyable. I was hoping we'd get a little bit more out of Despair, but I thought about covering that here on the podcast, but it was more Ava related, as we all expected. So if I decide to jump into Angela Del Toro and move into Ava after I cover all of the Hector stuff, once I get there in continuity, I might wind up covering it. I don't just want to throw in Ava with nothing going on with the character. I feel that would disrupt the podcast feed. But if you haven't picked it up, pick it up. It's got that sweet character concept cover from George Perez that I picked up. I knew I seen it on eBay for like $72. Some people said they couldn't find it. I got mine on Midtown a week beforehand as soon as it was listed for $45. I figured it was going to be expensive. I went ahead and grabbed it. But yeah, if you want to, go ahead, read White Tiger Reborn. It won't spoil anything if you're listening to this podcast just for Hector. But today, we're giving you some Shang Chi content. You've had very little Shang Chi content in with all this recent Iron Fist content because, we had Eyes of Wakanda, we had Undead Iron Fist. Hopefully you've listened to that episode. By the way, thank you. That's one of the most listened episodes in a long time. It's already almost peaked into the top 10 by what Spotify tells me, because I upload everything through Spotify. So, if you're listening, I appreciate that. If you haven't listened and you're new to the podcast, please go listen to that, because I will be covering issue 2 when it comes out here at the end of the month of October. But now we're getting you some Shang-Chi content. We're jumping back into Astonishing Avengers, and we do know that he will be part of the X-Vengers for the X-Men Age of Revelation series. I should say. It's an event. It's a huge event, because, the X-Men got to have their events. And that's kind of what took me out of reading the X-Men during Age of Swords or X of Swords or whatever it was, because it's just too much. Way too much. But we're going to get you into some Shang-Chi content. I'm assuming at this point as I'm reading, I think Steve Orlando's Astonishing Avengers has ended. And today we are covering 24, 25, 26, 27 all together. And I know they're at issue 30. I haven't read 27 through 30, but I don't think anything has been added. I know there's been gaps throughout the year, but I think maybe that has ended. Not sure. Don't hold me to that. So hopefully after this, maybe next week, I'll get the finale out. But Shang-Chi hasn't really been involved in any of the storylines that's been going on since issues 5 through 8. So, but he has been spotted here and there. So I'm going to cover a lot of these. You cannot read these on LCS shelves. They are Marvel Unlimited only. They're Infinity Comics. yeah, you might hear a vehicle come by. I'm kind of at my house by myself, kind of letting it air out with all the work that's gone on because despite them no-showing me one day, they told me they weren't working Sunday. So just saying, hey, get some housework done, prepare yourself that you might want to sue. Just saying. But anyways, so I've got some notes here just for a ton of comic books where Shang-Chi is not involved in the story. 13 through 16 for Astonishing Avengers. It's really cool. It involves Hercules Somnus, who I'm not familiar with, as they face the old villain Cobweb from the Sleepwalker stories, which is kind of odd because we'll get to that here in a little while. Cobweb was in the Avengers Mansion, and when Wonder Man and She-Hulk come in, like, everybody's covered in cobwebs. I feel there was a little bit of a wasted opportunity. Maybe you could do here Shang-Chi, depending on how you see that, because as they're webbed up, they're reliving nightmares, and they're being shown like we see Wonder Man, no more Wonder Man, which, you know, Wonder Man was a member of Hydra at one time. We get Clint, where he's been in prison, he's being beat by police. We get, I thought this was really freaking wild, and I thought this was very a strong point with Monica Rambeau. Like, we see like a member of the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, in her nightmares. And I felt that was very strong for Photon because I have never seen her. I love Monica. I haven't read anything with Monica in a long time. Like, where she's like in a teen for the most part. And I don't think I've ever seen her deal with anything racial in comics. So I thought that was kind of it caught me off guard. Let's put it like that. But I mean, it fits her. Because, I mean, she is the only black character. I would assume that she has felt prejudice in her life. I mean, even the fact that she was Captain Marvel, and I'm not saying it's in a book, but I'm pretty sure there has been people that's like, you can't be Captain Marvel, you're black. I mean, it's kind of like Sam Wilson going from Falcon to Captain America, and then that was even in the MCU, like, you can't be Captain America, you're black. Captain America is a symbol, doesn't matter who it is. I mean, a black man can stand for the symbol of freedom just as much, and probably more than anybody else. So, I mean, I could see where Monica would have some nightmares like that. Now, the thing is, with Shang-Chi, he had the perfect opportunity to be involved with this, because you figured he would have nightmares about Fu Manchu, his father, and everything that he had went through. But also, I know that with Jean's story, that, he put a lot of that backstory to Shang-Chi to bed. So I could see where it also wasn't there. But I thought just a panel of, hey, maybe he's at peace with everything. I could see where Shang-Chi would be at peace with his past, and maybe, like a lot of these other characters, that they're not. I could see where he would be at peace with that. So maybe, now that I think about it, maybe there wasn't a need for that. But when we jump into issue 21, the story before this, all the girls on the team were involved in some wrestling scheming. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I love wrestling. Great love by Steve Orlando given to the business there in those issues. And when we next see Shang-Chi, him and Monica's watching wrestling from inside the Avengers Mansion. It's, what? Come on, ref. What are you looking at, dude? Monica says, that's their gimmick, Shang-Chi. The tenacious triad's known for triplet magic. And he says, one undercover mission and suddenly you're an expert on wrestling, Photon? And she replies, I wasn't into it before, but once you've worn the boots, you gotta respect the craft. Sounds pretty spot on in my opinion. But Shang-Chi getting into wrestling, I know we're dealing with not the Bronze Age Shang-Chi here, but I mean, I like that he's into it. It cracks me up. Later on the issue, this is where we're dealing with the one world under Doom. All the Avengers go to deal with Doom facing the High Evolutionary. Cap says that him, Arrow, and Shang-Chi is going to take watch. Nothing comes out of it, but we go to the next issue, in issue 22, and we get to see Shang-Chi spar with Moondragon. So I think that's, to me, very important as someone who's been reading this character from the beginning, who's loved this character for years, to see him sparring with another hero. Because you would figure, being the master of Kung Fu, now that he's the master of the Ten Rings, like, you would always want to see him on his toes, staying on top of his game, always sparring, trying to keep his skills sharp. And then we go to the end of 23, where we see Jarvis taking a break to read a book called The Blood Bandit. And as he opens a book, he gets sucked inside of the book, which takes us to issues 24, 25, 26, 27, titled Into the Ideaverse. So let's go ahead and jump into that synopsis. Now, I'll go through each issue here, and then I'll go to the notes, kind of like I used to do way back in the day when I first started the podcast, and much like I did with the last Astonishing Avengers that I covered. Finding the novel Jarvis was reading, Shang Chi, Hawkeye, and Elektra find themselves transported into the Ideaverse. Upon their arrival, they are greeted by Prospero, the supreme sorcerer of the realm. When learning of Jarvis, he explains to the Avengers that due to not knowing of the butler, he must be held prisoner by Bishop Slaughter. He warns them that the deranged leader lives in Empire City, a place he cannot traverse. With desperation in his voice, Prospero asks them to intervene on his behalf before it's too late. As he teleports away, Slaughter's madmen, the Bloodletters, arrive to force the Avengers into their gang. Instead of fighting, Hawkeye mentions they will lead them to slaughter if they surrender. Agreeing with Elektra, Shang-Chi leaves behind one of the 10 rings as a breadcrumb. Not too long after they're forced away, Jarvis finds the artifact, but he's not alone. Captain Ahab, Jay Gatsby, and Hester Prynne stand beside him as the Avenging Literary Society. Moving on to issue 25. At West ECC, the Avengers Literary Squad question their newest member Jarvis on the truth of the golden ring they found. He assures them that Shang-Chi left the ring behind on purpose because the Avengers have a plan. Once gaining their trust on the matter, they begin to make plans to take down Bishop Slaughter. Meanwhile, at the slaughterhouse, the Avengers meet the Bishop and learn of Bookworm, a mortal infected with energies that can affect the mindscape. Being able to pull readers into the Ideaverse, Bishop reveals they are using Nelson Gruber's gifts to conscript those pulled in and force them into an army. Telling the Avengers he plans to use them and the Bloodletters to exact revenge against Scarlet Witch for banishing him to this realm, the Avengers are lowered into the cellar below to be psychologically broken. As the heroes fall below, Bookworm warns Slaughter against using the Avengers, but the Bishop doesn't care. In the catacombs below, the Avengers see all the innocent readers the two villains have captured. Assuring them that this is a rescue, Shang-Chi promises the captives that he still has his greatest weapon on him, his deadly hands. Moving on to issue 26. In the slaughterhouses, the Bishop and his Bloodletters celebrate. Below, Hawkeye and Elektra draw up plans to escape as Shang-Chi reaches out to feel the magic of the 10 rings. Those trapped below with him are terrified at the thought of fighting, but the Master of Kung Fu assures them they have nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, Jarvis and the Avenging Literary Society make plans to attack the slaughterhouse themselves. Any doubts they have are put to rest as the butler explains the ring will seek out its master. Back at the slaughterhouse, the Bishop and Bookworm discuss the rate at which their army must grow. Nelson Gruber assures the deranged leader that more will be added to the ranks, but expresses his concerns again about the Avengers held below. As Slaughter expresses the heroes will break, just like everyone else, the 10 rings explode through the floor. Shang-Chi, Elektra, and Hawkeye emerge to challenge him with the prisoners in tow. The Bishop orders his Bloodletters to attack, but finds Bookworm has fled. As Nelson finds the nearest exit, he is met by Jarvis. Moving on to the final issue, number 27. Shang-Chi battles Slaughter as Elektra and Hawkeye battle as minions. Still trying to flee, Bookworm takes a cheap shot at Jarvis, but the avenging butler proves to be tough as nails. He returns the favor with a punch, using the magical ring as a brass knuckle. As the ring then flies off to its true owner, Shang-Chi finds that Slaughter Bishop fights just as dirty as Bookworm. With the Master of the 10 Rings now at full power, he delivers a devastating blow that seems to stop the villain. With the rest of the Avenging Literary Society helping with the Bloodletters, the battle quickly turns to the hero's favor. Jay Gatsby snatches up Bookworm, who immediately tries to bribe him and the other literary figures. To their surprise, Bishop Slaughter appears unharmed with Shang-Chi on his back and trying to stop him. He manages to break the villain's arm, but it's too late. Bishop's cleaver goes flying through the air and into Nelson Gruber's head. Prospero then arrives, but it's too late to save Bookworm. Given no choice, he uses his power as a Sorcerer Supreme to put an end to Bishop Slaughter's reign of terror. With the Ideaverse saved, the Avengers and the Avenging Literary Society celebrate before Prospero turns the heroes home. So I had to do a little digging with what time I've got going on with all my construction going on in my home. So all these characters that are from the Ideaverse, except for Bookworm, this is all their first appearances. Prospero is from Shakespeare's The Tempest. We know Captain Ahab is from Moby Dick. We know that Hester is from The Scarlet Letter, and Jay Gatsby is from The Great Gatsby. Now, Slaughter is the one that threw me for a loop. The book he was from is called The Blood Bandit. I looked up The Blood Bandit. There's one by Christopher Peterson is the first thing that came up that I'm aware of. Just by getting links, I know that Goodreads, it showed up. I know that it showed up on Barnes & Noble. It's apparently part 9 of Greenland Missing Persons. And I'm not going to say that it has any relation to the character Bishop Slaughter. I even looked up Bishop Slaughter, and there are some bishops with the last name Slaughter that have wrote things. Mainly one was from like 1808, from like 1890 something. The dude lived to be very old, but he didn't even seem to be related to that character. I couldn't find anything that was relatable to the villain, but he has a very Gangs of New York feel to him, like fighting with meat cleavers. He looks like a pilgrim. He's got a capitaine hat, or however you want to pronounce that the pilgrims used to wear, with the little buckle. If Solomon Kane had a beard and was very demented and wielded meat cleavers, yeah, I guess that's what you would get with Bishop, because he is very strong. He seems like he's bloodthirsty, but his look, that pilgrim look, like especially when you think of Solomon Kane, he's got that look to him. I really enjoyed the villain, and I was hoping that there would be more to him, more of a background to him as these issues dropped on Marvel Unlimited, but there wasn't, so I was kind of disappointed in that, because I was hoping we would get more of a backstory to him, because I couldn't find anything about him. And then these other literary characters, well, they have backstories. They're in novels that are over 100 years old at least, if not more, depending on the character that we're speaking of, especially in regards to like Shakespeare. So, I was kind of upset there wasn't more about the character. Now, as for his toughness, he seems like he's pretty strong. During his fights, clearly he is the one that is fighting Shang Chi. As a fan of the character, and he is one of the focal points for this podcast, that's kind of what I want. I want him to fight the main characters, and we get a little bit of that here. So when the fight comes through, so the rings, they bust up through the floor. I don't know why Slaughter is surprised at that. Bookworm's not, because he's been warning him this entire time. So they come out. Shang-Chi emerges with Elektra and Hawkeye. Man, I love the Elektra Daredevil look, and you might be mad that I'm not calling her Daredevil, but not everybody who listens to this is going to read this issue. So I don't want to keep saying Daredevil, and everybody's like, man, why is Matt Murdock running around with Avengers? He's never been in Avengers, except for when he was babysitting for Luke Cage and Jessica Jones during the Fear Itself storyline, and he was pretty much Avengers and went balls out to protect Danielle. Read that issue in New Avengers if you've never read it, because you want to see Matt Murdock protect a child of one of his dear friends. Boy, he goes all out. I love that issue. But anyways, in the final issue, we do get this taste of Shang-Chi fighting Bishop Slaughter. So Jarvis, he punches Bookworm. The ring comes to Shang-Chi, and it's almost like he's shown to do like the Kamehameha or the Hadouken from Street Fighter, and he hits Bishop Slaughter in the midsection, and he said, "Duel's over, Slaughter." Was more of an exhibition anyways, and that was my main concern. It's like, how can this character be so powerful that he is going to fight Shang-Chi one-on-one, who we have now? Chernobog was a god. He fought Sin with the powers of, I can't recall what it was, in the Avengers miniseries with the Serpent Society. Like, she basically had the powers of a Norse god. Like, so he has fought gods all the way up to this point. And I'm like, how is this villain even going to remotely stand a chance when we've seen that these 10 rings are making him extremely powerful? They're very versatile, and we haven't seen the extent to them. If you're curious about the extent to them, maybe to what they could be, check out the Marvel Zombies series that just come out. I just did a review on it. interesting way the rings work. I'm sure you know about it by now. But anyway, so he blasts Bishop Slaughter, and the way that it's shown in the next panel, all we see is his Capitan hat falling to the ground. Almost like you would think that he was vaporized, like kind of like with Super Saiyan Goku or Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, like obliterates Cell during the Cell games in Dragon Ball Z. So I assumed as I was reading this, like, dude, he just, disintegrated him, and that is badass. I was like, whoa. So the fight continues on with the Bloodletters. The Avenging Literary Society shows up, and I love that Hester has the branding of the Scarlet A. Of course, Ahab has his harpoon, and Gatsby has brass knuckles on. I love that. I thought that was so cool. Well, anyway, so they start fighting everybody, and then all of a sudden they capture Bookworm, and we find out that Bishop Slaughter is still alive, and he looks massive. Shang-Chi is on his back. He's got him in the leg scissors. He's got him in a chokehold. I mean, he's got it tight under his chin. He's got that head wrapped around the side of his head with his hand pushing forward on the back of his skull. Like, it's straight up MMA. We already know that Steve Orlando loves this type of stuff because I said there is a 4-part story where the women do the undercover wrestling gig. Shang-Chi is trying to choke him out. And what's cool about this issue, the final issue, it's told through a tale of Prospero to Huck Finn, and I thought that was really cool. He comes through the door, and Slaughter says, "You saucy-legged dandy," and Shang-Chi says, "Dude, I've got to know the lingo to be insulted." I know, some of you out there are going to complain about this on the internet. There are people who listen to the show that hate this version of Shang-Chi. That's fine. You don't have to enjoy the character. He's more MCU-based, I get it, and I'm fine with it. I do love my Bronze Age Shang-Chi, written by Minch, but the Shang-Chi is just fine. He's just more colorful. That's it. So, Shang-Chi is trying to slow him down. We get the next panel. He hurls his cleaver. Hoo-ah! And Shang-Chi at the same time has him in an armbar. Crunch! And he breaks his arm, and the cleaver goes into the back of Bookworm's head. So, this entire time I'm thinking, okay, again, how powerful is this character? Shang-Chi, with all his strength, with the 10 rings, like I said, we've seen him fight 2 gods up to this point. How powerful is he? And then I thought, they're in the Ideaverse. This character is clearly a novel character. He's an ideal. How powerful are ideas? The ideal of anything in the world. I mean, and I'm just going to kind of throw this back to Photon with the nightmares, with when she had cobwebs had covered her up. We've seen that picture of the Klan, and you look at Martin Luther King Jr., the whole "I have a dream" speech, and that ideal, the whole, him marching at that time, the Rose Park, those ideas are so strong that they have stayed with this country and with history up to this very day. And that's, 80 years ago? So we have mortals battling ideals. So of course they are that powerful. I mean, you would think that these ideals would be more powerful than most of your heroes because they truly are fictional. How can you hurt something that's not real, even though this Idealverse is real to the story? And I thought, maybe that's what Steve Orlando was getting at. That this character is that powerful because he is technically a fictional idea. So that's how I took that, and to me, I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense, in my opinion. Because then, once he kills Bookworm, this is where Prospero has to stand and use his power of the Sorcerer Supreme, and he says, "Sleep, Bishop, sleep. Your hunt has ended, and with it, your relevancy." And he uses some magic of his staff. His staff has got this energy. It turns into energy. It hits him in the head, and it seems like it puts him to sleep. That's the last thing we see from him. So, being the Sorcerer Supreme of this realm, I mean, maybe he has the power to wipe out ideas. And being a fictional character, that kind of makes sense to... Oh, my cat Momo's up here. Because I'm recording on my couch on the back of my entertainment center because it's pulled out so these guys can walk through. And she wants attention because, I haven't been here all week. But anyways, so the character Bookworm, I meant to bring him up earlier, and I probably should have. He is the only villain that's actually been around. Not long. As I mentioned with Cobweb being a Sleepwalker villain, so is Bookworm. His first appearance is from Sleepwalker, Volume 1, Number 4, way back in 1991. And he was not relevant, again, until, I guess, that Scarlet Witch series, Volume 3, pull it up, Issue 7 from 2023. He's in there, and Scarlet Witch banishes him to this world. That's why he's here. And go figure, Steve Orlando co-wrote that book. So that's why we've got Bookworm in his story. So I love when writers are making connections to stuff that they've previously wrote. Wrapping this up, I really liked the overall idea of this story. And I don't know, I guess since I have some of this pulled up, I'm going to look. Because the Ideaverse, if it's a thing, it's new to me, which, I don't read every comic in existence. So, Supernatural Thrillers number 2 was the first appearance of the Ideaverse, a pocket multiverse, a hidden metaverse in which all of the literary characters that inspired the Marvel comic heroes and villains live together. The characters live in a time loop in which the tales are repeated over and over. Let's see, apparently Nightmare had invaded this world and was stopped by the Fantastic Four. So, just looking through. And then the Bookworm. Man, I might read this story that Steve Orlando co-wrote. Just kind of looking over it because I see the Wicked Witch of the West is involved with this Bookworm story and the Scarlet Witch and the whole Wizard of Oz thing. So I might look into that and read that because clearly it has to be on Marvel Unlimited. So the Ideaverse has 73 appearances in Marvel Comics. Let's see when it started getting... yeah, we're going to go back. Let's see here. So, if we look at every book that like Marvel Classics, Robin Crusoe, Master of the World, Food of the Gods, Moonstone, let's see, The Invisible Man, The Illid, Kidnapped, Mysterious Island. So, every comic that they have, every novel that they've used that they've turned into a comic, or anytime a novel has been involved in a story, is considered the Ideaverse. For instance, their whole volume of Zorro, all 12 issues, are considered to be in this universe. The Haunt of Horror, Edgar Allan Poe, I own this. From the Max series, this is considered to be part of it. The Last of the Mohicans from Marvel Illustrated. Let's see, the Moby Dick stuff, Fantastic Four True Story, as in this world. So I think this is pretty cool. Okay, Deadpool Illustrated. That makes sense because I remember there's the image with Moby Dick. I own this stuff. So it's actually in the last 20 years been around a lot more than what I expected. So that's very surprising. So some of the stuff I might get around and read. But the last issue I'm looking at from Deadpool Kills Deadpool Volume 1 Number 2 and Scarlet Witch is about 10 years since it was used, so it stayed gone for quite a long time. So, but what I'm getting at is like this whole idea of what's going on with the Ideaverse. I like Marvel Infinity Comics because Marvel gives people the chance to showcase themselves, and it gives them an idea of what someone's capable of, maybe before they get a full-time gig at Marvel with a series or whatnot, just to show them what they can do. Hint, hint, Marvel, give me a shot. I got a really cool Son of Satan, Damon Hellstorm one-shot that I would clearly love to do, and I would do it for nothing. I would just do it just for the chance. But anyways, these stories are short, they're fast, they're always quick reads. This story, I wish they would give Steve Orlando the chance to really write this out and give him like a whole run that's involved with this, because like if you would have gave him a solid 5-6 issue miniseries to flesh this out so it's not so fast, because I really wanted to learn more about Bishop Slaughter, where he come from, this story, the Blood Bandit. And maybe I'm just overlooking something in research because I've done something real fast, but I really would have liked to see this expanded more and seen more about the character, because some of the fights in this book have been pretty fight heavy, especially the last Shang Chi story where they fought Chernobog, and I wish there was more of that here, but this really was more story, and that's great because I love a good story. I just wish he had the chance to actually expand this and make it longer than what it is, because these 4 issues with all these stories go by very, very quickly, and I wish that I had more of this, like I said, especially with Bishop Slaughter. So there's 3 more issues of this that I'm aware of. In the last issue was a week or 2 ago, which a week or 2 ago gaps have happened here towards this series after, I don't want to say like, after the wrestling story, we started getting gaps in releases, so this might be wrapped up. I have no clue. But I will cover those here soon. I know that we're getting the whole Monolith story and what it actually is, so I'd assume that this is the end of it. And hopefully there's a lot of Shang-Chi, and I have a really good reason to cover it here on the podcast. That'll wrap up this episode of the Deadly Podcast, Kung Fu, brought to you by the Villain's Man. If you want to keep up the podcast, you can do so over on social media platforms, Twitter X, Instagram, and Threads. If you like my music, check out Rushing Tiger by Kuro over on SoundCloud and YouTube. Remember, guys, at the end of October here in a couple weeks, we will be getting X-Vengers. That features Shang-Chi as part of the X-Men Age of Revelations event that's going on. White Tiger Reborn just come out. Go pick that up at your comic shops. I know some people were saying, man, they didn't even get a copy of it. So maybe just people ordered it short, and I could see that because of the character. I'm not saying Ava is not popular, but she's not as popular. I'm pretty sure we're going to wind up getting a series after this by the time Daredevil Reborn picks back up. Make sure you're picking up Undead Iron Fist. Number 1's been out for almost a month now. Why haven't you read it? I think everybody in the world has read it, to be honest with you. And number 2 comes out a week before X-Avengers featuring Shang-Chi. But most importantly, guys, I'm telling you about these comics. You should be picking them up and supporting your LCS and keep reading